Describe the importance of mental health in one word.
Essential.
Resource.
Crucial.
Nuanced.
Yes.
Thank you again, Jeff, Ella, and Will, for participating in this podcast. Now, this purpose of this podcast is to spread awareness about the stigma of mental health in Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. Here, we're going to learn about the experience of transfer students from the Northern Marianas College to Portland State University. All of us are going to provide information about mental health with scholarly articles. And then we're also going to inquire about the ideation or your idea of mental health in your terms, as transfer students from the Northern Marianas Islands. Yes, we're going to pin a picture on what it is like to live in Saipan. What do you see in your everyday lives in Saipan? How are the roads? How are the people?
That's a crazy.
Yeah.
To kind of like set the scene, I think the best time is like around spring. It's hot, but it's not too hot. It's bright outside, and the vibe of everything's really chill, laid back. I think that it's a privilege. To an extent, it's like a privilege that we got to wake up to that setting almost every day. Now, like, let's add in like the people. They're all kind of going about their business, and they're all trying to do whatever it is that they had planned for the day.
Saipan is very like slow pace, kind of
Yeah,
kind of community. I don't think I felt like I was living my life alone. I felt like I had a community with me all the time.
right.
First, think of like back home. The very first thing that comes to mind is like the coconut trees at the beach and like the water. Because
I can't believe we barely talked about the beach.
I know, that's what I was like, guys, come on.
Selling
bro.
point.
It's all around us.
It is like a tiny gem of like paradise, but it isn't without its kind of struggles, more or less. I think something that we've kind of realized is that like living in an island is like we make do of whatever, and
Yes, we use our resources.
yeah.
So, Sumi Okazaki and her colleagues did a research study among Asian American college students' mental health before and after COVID-19. Sumi and her colleagues found that younger age was correlated with higher reports of pandemic stress, discrimination, distress, and worry. So, how was your mental health before, during, and after the COVID-19 pandemic?
My mental health was surrounded based on what happened during the pandemic and not because of the pandemic. But yeah, I was training with my coach, and like he wanted me to be like the next team captain, but then pandemic hit, and my partner at the time, her family was against going out, and it was strongly advised to like wear a mask, and if I didn't or if I went out, I'd have to like wait to see her.
They were strict.
Yeah, it was very strict, and I stopped going to like my basketball practices. Like my coach would contact me and everything, asking me like what happened. I felt like I was held back, and it kind of just made me like sad. I wasn't doing what I like doing anymore. And then it kind of I kind of felt isolated, and like it was hard for me to get back into doing what I love doing.
Here's our next topic. Here's some background information for you guys. Dr. Hogan and former New York State Commissioner of Mental Health in 2002 noted that the spending on mental illness had skyrocketed in the United States, but was being allocated to the criminal justice system, the general healthcare system, and the welfare system. Instead of the funds being allocated into the mental health treatment system, it affected the accessibility, the availability, and the quality of treatment for people dealing with mental illnesses. So, have you or know someone that have used mental health services, like counseling, therapy, or suicide hotlines? If you have used mental health services, how did you find these resources, And then also, how did you feel when you got access to these services?
For me especially, I think as soon as like school started, I put myself like within like counseling, because I was feeling a lot of like emotions. I was feeling a lot of like imposter syndrome and anxiety and stress, coming out here and starting school in the fall. Also just like feeling a lot of burnout as well, especially during the winter. I crashed out hard during the winter term, and really felt like I needed to see someone or professional or someone working to become a professional in the setting, because I felt like these conversations, like, yes, you know, we can have them, but if I want to get real help and like begin improving myself, the conversation kind of has to start with me, and maybe someone else who can give me direction and guidance as to like what would be best practice and what I should do next. Me, or providing me at least with like a clinic that I could go to if that's something that I do want to seek out. So they're out there, you kind of just have to like search for it.
So we'll move on to our last topic, and it is about data desegregation. So suicide is one of the leading causes of death for the AANHPI adolescents. Adia and her colleagues mentioned that, however, with the AANHPI community being lumped in one data set, this case becomes invisible, which is why data disaggregation is important for this community, because there are many racial subgroups within one community. So what are ways you might think that data disaggregation is important to the AANHPI community? And what are some self-care activities that you do when you feel mentally drained?
Yeah, I mean, this aggregation is essential and really important, especially for AANHPI communities, because, like, you know, for our entire lives we just get lumped into kind of like one category as like typically others, or just Asian or Pacific Islanders, or Asian and Pacific Islander into one thing. Like, we spend our entire lives kind of having that be something normalized when it really shouldn't be, because, you know, yes, we do have all these similarities, but we couldn't be more different from one another. At least for like, as an Asian person, like, Filipinos are like the third largest Asian group, but we're never represented or really talked about in like media or in research. And
like Grey's Anatomy. Have you guys seen a Filipino nurse in Grey's Anatomy?
That's why it's not accurate.
Like, you know, like within like modern media context, like there's kind of this like there's this perception and almost like whitewashing in a sense, and it's really, really frustrating, because like, how can you like, you know, within research, how do you claim that like all Asians experience this exact same thing? Like, no.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's why there's that, like, that's why this aggregation is so like important, like within research, because you cannot claim that this is an entire community's story when it's really just one portion of like a bigger whole of a bigger whole.
That's a
podcast.
Bye.